Hello and welcome. You're watching News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. On the show, we're going to bring you all the details on the latest on-the-ground situation in Sudan. That's the biggest global story at the moment. As fierce fighting between two rival factions of the military rages on in Sudan, there are growing concerns about the safety and security of Indian nationals stranded in the war-torn African country. But there is also some good news coming in now from Sudan. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar tweeted just a short while ago pictures of the Indians who are waiting to be evacuated, and the tweet reads, and I quote, "Operation Kaveri gets underway to bring back our citizens stranded in Sudan. About 500 Indians have reached Port Sudan. More are on their way. Our ships and aircraft are set to bring them back home. We are committed to assisting all our brethren in Sudan." That's what the External Affairs Minister tweeted a short while ago. Now, according to government estimates, there are over 3,000 Indian citizens in that country, most of them in capital Khartoum, where the fighting has been most intense. 3 Indian nationals are among 66 citizens of 12 nations, including diplomats and government officials, who were evacuated by Saudi Arabia. A ship carrying 91 Saudi citizens and other 66 nationals reached Jeddah on Saturday in the first announced evacuation of civilians since fighting began. A convoy of vehicles carrying the evacuees to Port Sudan, from where they boarded ships to Jeddah. The 3 Indians evacuated by Saudi Arabia were crew members of the Saudi Arabian airline that was shot at as the fighting began on the ground last week. India's Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar had spoken with his Saudi counterpart about the evacuation of Indians from Sudan. Some Indians have been evacuated by the French government as well. The figures haven't been revealed yet. Meanwhile, 2 Indian Air Force planes, as we just mentioned, have been placed on standby in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and an Indian naval ship has been deployed at Port Sudan. This information has been tweeted, as we said, by the External Affairs Minister. The government says as soon as the ground situation in Sudan is conducive for evacuation operations, Indians trapped there will be brought back safely, and now it looks like that operation is already underway. It's been termed Operation Kaveri. India, of course, has been considering all options, including land routes, to move its citizens to safer places, because remember, the airport is not functional in capital Khartoum. Indian embassy personnel are staying back to coordinate and assist in the rescue operations. Apart from the Sudanese authorities, the Indian embassy in Sudan has been in touch with the UN, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, the United States, among other countries. Now, among the over 400 people who've been killed in the intense fighting in Sudan, one was an Indian. Albert Augustine, a 48-year-old former Indian serviceman, was killed by a stray bullet. According to the World Health Organization, more than 420 people have been killed and over 3,700 wounded, but the actual death toll could be much higher. As we mentioned earlier, there are over 3,000 Indians in Sudan waiting to be evacuated. Some 1,200 of them are descendants of Indians who migrated to Sudan decades ago. About 2,400 are UN staff, members of international organizations, IT professionals, and those working in other sectors such as the pharmaceutical, sugar, steel, and ceramic industries. Many countries such as the US, the UK, France, China, and Germany have also begun extracting their citizens from the conflict zone. The question is, what next for the stranded Indians? As we said, there seems to be good news now coming in from Sudan, because the evacuation process is about to kick off as far as those Indians are concerned. All right, let's now go across to our panel. Joining me on the show, Ambassador Satish Mehta, former Indian ambassador to Kuwait, is with us. We're also hoping to be joined in a moment by Major General Sudhakar Ji, defense expert, and Asif Ramiz Dodi, foreign affairs expert. All right, Ambassador Satish Mehta, let me start with you, sir. As we look at all the challenges that India is likely to face in this evacuation process, what is your assessment? Like I keep saying, there is good news coming in with the External Affairs Minister tweeting that about 500 Indian nationals have already made their way to Port Sudan and are waiting to be evacuated. We have our naval ship deployed there.
Thank you very much for inviting me. India has a very proud record of evacuation of its nationals wherever they are in difficult circumstances. Taking back to the 90s, early 90s, we had evacuated over 190,000 people from Kuwait. And this was the world's, and continues to be the world's largest evacuation ever. So, and we have continued this tradition ever since, more later in Libya, now in Sudan, and a number of other countries in between. So, first thing that you should know that government of India is deeply committed to the safety of its nationals abroad. The second thing at which you already mentioned, the telephone conversation that the foreign minister has had with Mr. Shankar. There are a number of countries who are in the region or who can play a role in helping our nationals come out. The Prime Minister has himself chaired a meeting, and that shows that the importance to evacuation and safety goes up to the highest levels. He chaired a meeting recently and to work out the logistics, to look ahead and see all the steps that we will be required to take. And the outcomes are very clear. We already have, as you mentioned, 2 Air Force planes docked in Jeddah and a naval ship in Port Sudan to bring back our nationals. The good news is that there are a few good news in this otherwise grim scenario. One, from whatever assessments one has seen, one has read, one has heard, foreigners are not being targeted. So the only Indian who unfortunately lost his life was a stray bullet hitting him because we are not a victim of a directed attack, and that's important. Neither side in this dispute or this internecine warfare going on in Sudan, they're not targeting foreigners. At least so far, this has been the picture, and that gives us comfort. Secondly, both India and regional players are talking to the sides to make sure that, in our case, Indians are evacuated safely and, if necessary, safe passage, etc., be arranged, or as circumstances permit, sending our Air Force planes to bring them out. More than 500 are already. We have a naval ship, so hopefully soon they will be able to come out.
Hopefully the evacuation will begin sooner rather than later. The External Affairs Minister has said 500 people of Indian origin, Indian citizens who were stranded there have already reached Port Sudan. More are on their way. We have a few more updates for you. We mentioned earlier that 3 Indian nationals were evacuated over the weekend by Saudi Arabia. As per the latest reports, 5 Indian nationals have been evacuated by the French authorities, along with their own nationals and people from other countries in the last 24 hours. So there are other countries, of course, also that are involved in these rescue operations. So Saudi Arabia has evacuated 3 Indians, the French authorities have evacuated 5, and 500 Indian nationals are waiting to come back home via an Indian naval ship that has already been deployed at Port Sudan. All right, let me now take this to our next guest, Major General Sudhakar Ji. Sir, you know, the Indian External Affairs Minister had said, and even MEA spokesperson had repeatedly said in the last 1 week, that India was in wait and watch mode, that while there were contingency plans in place, but the government was waiting for the situation on the ground to improve. They said as soon as the situation is conducive for evacuations, we will go in and bring our people back. Now, of course, sir, there has been absolutely no pause as far as the fighting is concerned. There has been no ceasefire whatsoever. What do you think has now changed for India to feel that the time has come for the evacuations to begin, with Operation Kaveri now being underway?
Neha, good evening. Thank you for getting me to your show. And I must compliment the channel for flagging the issue. It's a very important evacuation amidst extremely complex situation. I have been caught in similar situation to the west coast of Africa, Sierra Leone, and coming out from such situations is pretty difficult. Coming to the question which you are asking as to what is the change in the situation, I would give credit to our leadership in the hierarchy and the diplomacy. They have been at their best, they have put the best foot forward. When we talk about two military factions, two rivals in the same organization, it becomes very, very intricate and complex. And mind you, our relationship with Sudan, one doesn't have to elaborate much. India and Sudan, we have had the best of relationship right since its birth. And it's one of the countries on whose name there is a huge block in National Defense Academy, which was built by the funds provided by Sudan, that is in Khadak Basla. So, and all our leadership, they have been, while going to England in earlier days, they used to pass through Sudan. There are more than 30 agreements which are signed between Sudan and India. So having said that, all I'm saying is, there is possibly, as per my assessment, our External Affairs Ministry has been able to establish contact because both the factions, admirably, they enjoy, or India enjoys best of relations with both the factions. One. Number two, unfortunately, the situation is complex because the name of Egypt is coming up, supporting one of the factions. UAE is involved. There are other countries also involved in this. So it's highly complex in the global perspective. So therefore, I would say a major breakthrough has been achieved by our embassy in the capital of Sudan. They have been able to take stock of our people because in a situation like this, the first and foremost challenge that I have seen and witnessed and experienced in my evacuation from Sierra Leone was to have an authentic list of people who are inside the violent activities and the location and no communication. As on today, as we are talking or having a panel discussion on your channel, I have my inputs coming from my old friends. There is no water. There is no food to eat, although the media is saying very conflicting inputs. There is no communication. There is no safe place to hide or the safe houses. So these messages or informations are coming through multiple channels through different countries and to coming onto us. So that is the kind of challenge people are facing today. So fortunately, they have also been able to establish some kind of a semblance of a corridor and there onto the Sudan at the airport, as also the port itself, seaport. The aircrafts are lined up. I believe I am given to understand at Jeddah, we have a huge, massive airlift capability of the aircrafts. They are likely to be touching down or they're already at Sudan.
Two have already been deployed in Jeddah, sir. Yes. Indian Air Force planes have already been deployed there.
And also the ATC that you call off for the air traffic control, which was dysfunctional for almost about past 7 days. Fortunately, it has been reactivated because without the air traffic control, the Air Force cannot land. The airport itself had been actually seized by one of the factions. And that, fortunately, there is an indication that these are informal inputs, Neha. I don't have anything formal. I'm told that they've said if Indian aircraft is coming, well, nothing will happen. That is the kind of indirect assurance which have been given to us. France is also in a big way going in for evacuation. They have managed to successfully evacuate some people, I think good 300 odd people, consisting of multiple international agencies and countries. Also, there are other countries endeavoring to pull out their people, but they have not been able to succeed because the rival factions, they have their own likes and dislikes. This much I can say. Yes. There are multiple stakeholders, Neha. Yes. It's very difficult to coordinate in this. If one stakeholder is saying, yes, we'll support India, there are other stakeholders, they will create a problem. So these are the kind of, unfolding situations which are actually characterized. So
and the toughest part is, who do you talk to? Though reports suggest that India has been in touch with both the factions led by the two military generals, General Dagalo and General Burhan, and an assurance has been forthcoming that all help will be extended to India as it undertakes this evacuation process. And you're quite right in pointing out that the goodwill that India enjoys with several countries, including Sudan, will hopefully come into play here. You know, we definitely are waiting for more details to emerge from Khartoum about the status of the airport, because until now, we've been given to understand it's been completely non-functional since the fighting began. Are things changing there? We'll have to find out, because there've really been no flight operations so far. Is that now likely to change? Let me, before I in fact go across to Asif Rameez Dawoodi, just for the benefit of our viewers, let me quickly point out the pictures that you're looking at right now on your screen are of those 500 Indians who have already arrived at Port Sudan. They are going to board the Indian naval ship that has been deployed there. That is how they are going to be evacuated. 500 Indians, as we keep saying, have reached the port. More are on their way. These are the latest pictures. The information and the pictures were tweeted by India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar just a short while ago, saying Operation Kaveri is now underway. All right, Asif Rameez Dawoodi, let me come to you now. Let's look at the situation on the ground. The fighting has been extremely intense, especially in capital Khartoum, where most of these Indians are stranded as well. The airport has been non-functional all this while, but several countries have begun evacuations. The United States, Britain, France, China, Germany, France, the Netherlands, at least these countries. India, of course, has been in touch with multiple nations in the region, also with authorities in the different warring factions in Sudan. Are you hopeful that with the External Affairs Minister announcing Operation Kaveri, that evacuations are likely to commence very soon? And what do you think has taken for us to come to this point, given that there has been no ceasefire and no pause in the fighting?
Well, what I have to say here, I'm extremely hopeful, and there are reasons. The evacuation will start, and I'm hopeful that this will be successfully done as well. There are many reasons. Reason number one, India is capable, and India has very rich experience in evacuating its citizens across the globe in such crises or emergencies. I'll give you some examples. I was in Kuwait in early 2000. I was working there, and I saw how people were evacuated from there. And leave that. We give some examples of Syria, Iraq, and other countries, and recently in Ukraine, how successfully the Indian government took all our citizens from there safely. There was one incident, but I don't want to go into that. Let me tell you one more thing. Right now, I'm in Jeddah, and the ambassador there in Sudan, His Excellency B.S. Mubarak, he was the Consul General of India in Jeddah, and I had the opportunity to work with him, from the community side, and that was the year, perhaps 2015. I mean, why I'm saying this, that the viewers, especially from India, they should not be worried a lot, because this man himself is a very rich and experienced person. That is the year when there was a stampede in Hajj, and a lot of people, they left us, and they lost their lives, and very successfully, the team here in the Consulate General of India in Jeddah, they successfully completed and concluded that operation as well. So this man is experienced, the MEA there, they have experience, a lot of experience there. And right now, as I said, I have seen rather lots of preparations going on here in the Indian school in Jeddah. There are lots of volunteers there, teachers, males, female, all the teachers are there, the non-teaching staff, Indian community members are there, and they are the volunteers. They're ready to welcome that, because there are two, as you said in your report as well, there are two Indian Air Force 130J. They have been stationed here in Jeddah. They are all well equipped, and they are well prepared. So these, the government is taking its own, course, and they are sincere. And the people there, as I said, even they have lots of challenges, as I told you. That even in Sudan, the current situation there is quite disturbing. But the countries like Saudi Arabia, the friendly countries, UAE, and even the US, etc. They are all cooperating, they are helping, and India has a very good relationship with these countries,
Absolutely.
so they are
Asif,
going
can
to
I
help
ask
them.
you,
And
can I
it's
come in
kind
and
of
ask you
mutual.
a follow-up question? You are quite right that apart from the fact that the Indian government has taken a fantastic initiative to bring the stranded Indians back home, we also have a fair amount of assistance coming in from friendly countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. But since you are in Jeddah, I'd like to ask you this. Would it be correct to say that evacuations at the moment are only taking place via land and sea routes, or have flight operations resumed as well? There is no clarity at the moment on the status of the Khartoum airport. Do you have an update on that?
I in fact don't have any updates on whether they are going to have some airlifting or using the air route or not. But as I said, I can see, I'm the witness, you can say, that there are, some serious kinds of preparations going on here with the help of the local government. They always help Indians. They are our friendly, country. And the Indian government also, through the, Indian Consulate General here in Jeddah, they have all preparations. Not only, we have the news, but I can see that there are two Indian Air Force 130J that is stationed here. But let me give you some more information in addition to what I said and to your question. What I think they are perhaps right now prepared for the sea routes, etc., land routes, etc. But I have no updates on the air routes. But I think they are experienced and they will be definitely working on that. You might be aware that even Saudi government, when they evacuated around 150, I was reading the news there in Arab news, and around 150 people from the stranded citizens there in Sudan, they were evacuated, and they evacuated even some, citizens from other countries. So this is the mutual kind of help, and there is a crisis. And let me tell you one thing: even Saudi Arabia it stands always ahead when it comes to humanitarian aids and when it comes to support in such kind of situations. They are trying their best, and I think together, if India is working with Saudi Arabia or UAE, US, and other countries, I think these around 3,000 Indians, let's say 2,800, and around 1,200, residents there, they have
They
their
should be back home
businesses there.
soon.
They will be
Absolutely.
successfully taken care, and we should not worry. The situation
Okay.
is that we get panic, but using your medium, I request your viewers not to get panic and be hopeful. Hopefully things will be settled down soon for Indians, and I pray that the
Okay.
people there is stuck from all the other countries and across the world,
Yes.
including Sudanese. They
Well,
should also
countries
be
are
protected,
working
and may
together.
God
There
protect
is mutual
everybody.
cooperation. You are right. Saudi Arabia was actually the first country to carry out evacuation from Sudan on Saturday. They also managed to evacuate 3 Indians amongst others. Before I go back to the rest of the panel, I want to quickly play out for you a soundbite of Pope Francis. This is what the Pope had to say about the ongoing situation in Sudan. Listen in.
Ieri è stata la giornata mondiale della terra. Auspico che l'impegno per la cura del creato sia sempre unito a un'effettiva solidarietà con i più poveri. Rimane purtroppo grave la situazione in Sudan, perciò rinnovo il mio appello affinché cessi al più presto la violenza, sia ripresa la strada del dialogo. Invito tutti a pregare per i nostri fratelli e sorelle sudanesi.
The Pope there issuing an appeal for peace to all sides, to all parties in Sudan, saying that he hopes that the fighting will end at the earliest and there should at the very least be a ceasefire. All right, let me go back to Ambassador Satish Mehta at this point. Sir, as I have been saying since the beginning of the show, some good news has started to trickle in. 3 Indians have been evacuated by Saudi Arabia, 5 by the French. 500 are already waiting at Port Sudan to come back via the sea route with an Indian naval ship deployed there. Operation Kaveri is underway. But since you said at the start of the show, and the entire panel agrees, that India has a stellar record of carrying out on a massive scale evacuation operations, bringing back thousands, in some cases lakhs of Indians stranded in war-torn countries. As you mentioned, and you've been ambassador to Kuwait, who can forget Operation Airlift that took place in the early 90s? Close to 2 lakh Indians were brought back safely. And since then, there have been multiple such operations over the years, especially in the last couple of years, whether it was during at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, or when the Ukraine war began, or for that matter, after the terror attack in Brussels. Clearly, the message from the Indian government over the years has been this, that every Indian life matters, and no matter where you are and however difficult the situation may be, we are not going to leave you behind. Every Indian will be brought back home safely, isn't it, sir?
It's absolutely true, and our past record, as you mentioned, as I mentioned, has more than once proved that. And you can just see the amount of effort that has gone the last 1 week. Prime Minister chairing a meeting, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar speaking to a number of his counterparts. He's fully focused on it. He just tweeted recently that 500 people have reached Port Sudan. So that just showed the amount of both attention and focus that the government has, and the priorities that attaches to safeguarding the people who are stranded abroad. So I don't think on that count anybody should have any doubt. As numbers go, I'm sure soon the first lot will be evacuated from Port Sudan. Secondly, also see like that the 500 and more people have moved or are moving to Port Sudan. There's no information whatsoever to suggest that they had been bothered or they had been attacked or they had been troubled. That itself shows both the respect that Indians enjoy abroad as well as India enjoys in various countries. And that's something which really comes in handy in circumstances like this. I think we should all be proud of the way we have handled our foreign policy and our relationship with various countries. That never you'll find Indians being targeted. And that's something which speaks highly both of the foreign policy, the way we deal with the foreign policy and diplomacy, and the conduct of Indians abroad.
I couldn't agree more with you. Let me put that question to Major General Sudhakarji. Sir, would you agree that the manner in which we have evacuated stranded Indians from multiple countries on multiple occasions over the years, and the way these evacuations are now being planned and undertaken in Sudan a week after, or let's say in 9 days after fighting began, it does tell us so much about India's very successful foreign policy, its success in diplomacy, in the fact that we enjoy this goodwill with multiple countries, including Sudan, and the fact that, of course, the Indian government has been very, very quick to act.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I must compliment you particularly for flagging an issue which is very relevant in today's time, because the country, as also the global order, is passing through multiple challenges, and the relevant stakeholders seem to be ignoring these challenges and going ahead with the conflict with Ukraine. But coming back to the question which you are asking, it reflects focus, prioritization on the part of the leadership and the ruling dispensation in the country, and the deep involvement of the leadership. That is where actually matters. In my lifetime, at least, this is for the first time, I mean, things are happening in a more refined and very sophisticated, professional manner post-2014. I'm a soldier. I am neither for any party. I am for the nation. But the way these kind of evacuations have been conducted, I myself was deeply involved in coordinating the evacuation of 20,000 students through multiple mainstream channel. People used to ask a lot of questions. I used to advise them what to do, what not to do. But this Sudan case is, I tend to agree with what the senior ambassador had just highlighted. I also wish to share through your channel that let's not be euphoric until the last Indian actually gets back from Sudan safely to the motherland. because such situations I have seen myself and experienced, that we started celebrating midway and suddenly came under fire from the rebels along the west coast. Here one doesn't know who's a rebel, who's pro-government and who's anti-government. So they should not be caught up in crossfire. It's a very, very dangerous situation.
Yes.
Keep the fingers crossed. I am trying to be cautious for the safety of the people of India.
Yes.
All-out effort is being made. I haven't seen any government, at least in my lifetime, getting into the nitty-gritties at the highest level. That is the Honorable Prime Minister himself, formulating the plans, asking questions, taking feedback as to whether ABC has been done or not. And also
issuing directions, issuing clear directions at a high-level meeting to all the officials who were present about what needed to be done next. You're quite right. The Indian government has been very proactive. The efforts have been commendable, but you're also right in asking us to exercise caution. Asif Rameez Dodi, wrap up this debate for us. Of course, the Major General is absolutely right in saying, let's hold off on those celebrations till every Indian is brought back home safely. We're now hopeful that the evacuations are going to start very, very soon. How long do you think it could actually take for each of these 3,000 Indians to be brought back?
Well, that's a good question and big concern. Let me tell you, yes, we should not celebrate, and no one is, I think, celebrating. But looking at the track record, looking at the kind of diplomat there, looking at the policies that we have at the MEA there, looking at the relationship that we have with other countries like Saudi and UAE, etc., they are already engaged in these kinds of evacuation. We cannot anticipate what is happening tomorrow. I wish, I pray for the protection. I hope that nothing happens to all the Indians and everyone else there. But I mean, looking at these track records, we should be hopeful. And I think the time, as you said, it might take perhaps, let's say, as seen there in Ukraine and the evacuation processes that took place in the past, it should take, let's say, around a week or 10 days minimum. But what I can see, like the preparations, as I need to add a few more things here in terms of what is going on here in Jeddah. We have international Indian schools here, biggest schools, around 10,000 students. All these staff members, all the teaching and non-teaching staff members, Indian community in lakhs, they are always there, and the volunteers are there in hundreds. They are ready, and they are having 24/7 hours, duty chart they have received there. So I think once the evacuation starts, and if they come to Jeddah, for example, things will be properly taken care, and we should be positive. We should not celebrate. That's
Yes.
right. But we should always be hopeful, looking at our past records, etc. And I think we can just pray. We can wait and watch. And the people like you and the channels like yours, they are trying to raise these issues to inform the general people there, and also to bring the attention of the government. That's really going to help. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
And I hope things will definitely
That's
come
our
up
hope
positively.
too. Absolutely. Massive arrangements are being made in Sudan, in Saudi Arabia, wherever possible, for those Indians to be evacuated from Sudan and brought back home safely. Our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Sudan, especially all those Indians who are trapped there. We're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that they're all brought out of the war-torn country safely and at the earliest. The process has begun. Operation Kaveri is underway. The government of India is doing its job and is acting fast to bring all these Indians back home. Well, this is a story we'll continue to track very closely for you here on News 9. But for now, a big thank you to all our guests for joining us on the show, and thanks to the viewers for watching.